In 1961, a young woman sat at her dressing table in a small Parisian apartment. The morning light came through sheer curtains. She reached for a compact, a tube of mascara, a single brush. Her reflection in the mirror showed a face the world would recognize instantly, though she had been awake for 2 hours already, and this was only the beginning. Her name was Audrey Hepburn. By the time she opened her front door at 9 o'clock that morning, she had followed a routine so precise that missing a single step would have felt like leaving the house without shoes. The elegance the camera captured was not an accident, it was architecture. And in 2024, a generation of young women is searching for her beauty secrets without understanding what those secrets actually cost. This is not a how-to guide. This is the story of what Audrey Hepburn actually did, what Hollywood required of her, and what happened to her body long before the cameras ever turned on. Before we go further, if this is the kind of story you came here for, subscribe. This channel exists to tell you what actually happened before the industry rewrote it. Hit that button. Let's go! She weighed 103 pounds for most of her career. Photographers described her as almost translucent in person. Costume designers at Paramount built her clothes on a frame so slight that the measurements looked like a mistake the first time they were written down. Her waist measured 20 inches during the filming of Sabrina in 1953. She maintained that measurement, give or take an inch, through Roman Holiday, Funny Face, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and Charade. She never called it a diet. She never discussed her weight in interviews. When asked about her figure, she smiled and said she was lucky. She was not lucky. What she was doing started long before Hollywood ever found her. The first thing you need to know about Audrey Hepburn's body is that it was shaped by war before it was ever shaped by a studio contract. In 1944, she was 15 years old and living in the Nazi-occupied Netherlands during what would later be called the Dutch Hunger Winter. The railways had been destroyed. Food could not be transported. The civilian population was starving. For 5 months, Audrey and her family survived on tulip bulbs, grass, and whatever could be scavenged from a landscape where nothing grew. She developed acute anemia and edema. Her metabolism slowed to preserve what little energy her body still had. By the time Allied forces liberated the Netherlands in May 1945, she weighed less than 90 pounds. Her body had learned to survive on almost nothing. That lesson stayed with her. Years later, a studio doctor would write in a memo that Miss Hepburn's metabolism appeared unusually efficient, requiring significantly less caloric intake than expected for her activity level. The doctor did not connect this to starvation. He simply noted it as a fortunate biological anomaly. She never corrected him. What she ate for the rest of her life has to be understood in this context. It was not willpower. It was a body that had been trained by famine to function on deprivation, and a mind that had learned not to expect more. Her breakfast never changed. Every morning for 30 years, the same 3 items. Plain yogurt, 1 slice of dry toast, black coffee, no butter, no jam, no variation. She ate this at 7 o'clock in the morning after waking at 5 o'clock. The 2-hour gap was not empty. It was filled with the rest of the routine, the part that happened before the yogurt ever appeared. The routine most people never saw. At 5 o'clock, she rose. No alarm, no delay. She had trained herself to wake naturally at this hour because sleeping later meant rushing, and rushing meant something would be forgotten. She washed her face with cold water, no soap. Soap, she believed, stripped the skin of necessary oils. She applied a thin layer of cold cream and massaged it into her face for 5 minutes. Small circular motions, the same pattern every day. This was not a beauty ritual. This was preparation. By 5:30, she had pinned her hair and begun the process that would take another 90 minutes. Most of the world believed Audrey Hepburn woke up looking the way she looked. She did not. What the world saw was the result of 2 hours of invisible work. The minimalist makeup she became famous for, the barely there look that launched 1,000 magazine features, required more time to apply than the full-face glamour worn by her contemporaries. The trick was making it look like nothing had been done. A light foundation, carefully blended so no line showed at the jaw. Powder set with a damp sponge, then brushed away until only a hint remained. The eyebrows, her signature feature, required the most time. She plucked them every morning, 1 hair at a time, maintaining a shape so specific that even a single stray hair would have broken the line. The eyes came next. A thin line of black pencil along the upper lash line extended slightly past the outer corner, then smudged with a fingertip until it softened into the skin. Mascara applied to the upper lashes only, 2 coats, each one dried completely before the next. The lower lashes were left bare. Lipstick in a shade so close to her natural lip color that it looked like she was wearing none, though she was. The entire process took 45 minutes. By the time she sat down to her yogurt and toast at 7 o'clock, she had been awake and working for 2 hours. She did this every single day, Sundays included. Here is where the story starts to pull in a direction most people do not expect. Stay with this part because it changes what we thought we knew. The studio contract she signed in the 1950s contained a clause that has since been made illegal. Paragraph 12 of her Paramount contract, dated 1953, stated that her weight would be monitored monthly and that failure to maintain her approved measurements would constitute breach of contract. The approved weight was listed as 103 pounds. Her height was listed as 5 feet 7 inches. The body mass index calculation for those numbers is 16.1, a measurement that modern medical standards classify as severely underweight. She was required by legal contract to remain at a weight her body would have naturally rejected. The clause was standard. Every actress signed the same language. Nobody questioned it because this was simply how the industry worked. Hubert de Givenchy designed her clothes. He became famous for it. But what most fashion historians leave out is that Givenchy did not design for Audrey Hepburn's natural proportions. He designed for the proportions the studio required her to maintain. And then he designed in a way that made those proportions look intentional rather than dangerous. The high waistlines, the boat neck collars, the sleeveless sheaths that became her signature. All of these were architectural solutions to a body that was too thin to wear traditional Hollywood glamour. A sweetheart neckline would have emphasized her visible collarbones. A belted waist would have made her frame look skeletal. Givenchy's genius was not that he made her look beautiful. It was that he made extreme thinness look elegant instead of alarming. The little black dress in Breakfast at Tiffany's is considered one of the most iconic costumes in film history. It was designed to solve a problem. The problem was that Audrey Hepburn's body, at the weight the studio required, could not carry the kind of dress Marilyn Monroe wore. Givenchy gave her a silhouette that made the thinness look like sophistication. The dress did not make her elegant. The dress made the contract weight look like a choice. Between breakfast and lunch, she did not eat. Not because she was disciplined, because the hunger that should have arrived mid-morning did not arrive. Her body, shaped by famine and maintained by routine, had stopped sending reliable signals. She drank black coffee throughout the morning, sometimes 3 cups, sometimes 5. The caffeine suppressed what little appetite remained. She smoked. Cigarettes were not just a social accessory in the 1950s. They were marketed directly to women as an appetite management tool. Lucky Strike ran advertisements with the slogan, "Reach for a Lucky instead of a sweet." She smoked Larks, a brand marketed as lower tar, which meant she could smoke more of them without the visible damage to her skin and teeth that heavier brands caused. A package of Larks sat on her dressing table, next to her lipstick and her compact. She smoked between scenes on set. She smoked in her trailer during lunch breaks. She smoked at home in the evenings while reading scripts. Nobody called this a diet strategy, but it functioned as one. Lunch, when it happened, was small. A green salad with lemon juice, no oil. Sometimes a piece of grilled fish. She ate slowly, setting her fork down between bites, a habit she had learned in childhood and never unlearned. Dinner was the only meal where she allowed herself what she called indulgences. Pasta, her favorite, prepared simply with olive oil and garlic. A single glass of red wine. On rare occasions, a small piece of dark chocolate after the meal. These indulgences were the only part of her routine that resembled pleasure. Everything else was maintenance. Her posture was perfect because it had to be. She had trained as a ballet dancer in her teens after the war in London and Amsterdam. The training left her with a skeletal alignment that required no conscious effort to maintain. She stood with her weight centered, her shoulders back, her chin level. She walked with her pelvis tucked, her core engaged, her steps deliberate. This was not elegance. This was biomechanics drilled into muscle memory through years of repetition at a bar. When people describe Audrey Hepburn as graceful, what they are seeing is the result of a physical discipline so complete that it became invisible. She moved the way a dancer moves because her body did not know any other way. She went to bed at 9:30 every night. No exceptions, no late evenings, no parties that ran past 10 o'clock. Sleep was not negotiable. She needed 8 hours to function, and she structured her entire life to ensure she got them. This was not self-care. This was necessity. The schedule she kept, the routine she followed, the weight she maintained, all of it required a level of energy her body could not produce without strict rest. She was not naturally energetic. She was running on fumes and making it look effortless. The elegance the world admired was a performance held together by discipline and sleep. Here is what women in 2024 are copying when they search for Audrey Hepburn beauty secrets. They are copying the minimalist makeup without understanding that it took 2 hours to apply. They are copying the ballet posture without knowing it came from years of professional training. They are copying the simple wardrobe without realizing that Givenchy's designs were tailored to make extreme thinness look intentional. They are copying the yogurt and toast breakfast without knowing that breakfast was the first meal in a daily routine shaped by wartime starvation and enforced by studio contract. The elegance they want to recreate was not a lifestyle. It was a system of control that Audrey Hepburn lived inside for 30 years. She made it look easy because that was the job. Making it look easy was the entire point. What replaced this? The Instagram wellness industry now sells the Audrey Hepburn morning routine as self-care. Wake at 5 o'clock, drink lemon water, practice mindful skincare, eat a light breakfast. The language has changed. The structure is identical. The industry that once required this routine through legal contract now sells it back as empowerment. The body that Hollywood demanded in 1953 is the body wellness influencers call goals in 2024. The measurements that were enforced by paragraph 12 of a studio contract are now called clean girl aesthetic. The routine has been repackaged. The control is the same. In 1988, Audrey Hepburn became a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. She spent the final 5 years of her life traveling to some of the poorest regions in the world: Ethiopia, Somalia, Sudan, bringing attention to famine and malnutrition. In photographs from these trips, she is holding children whose bodies show the same signs of starvation she had carried at 15. The irony was not lost on her. In one interview from 1992, a year before her death, she was asked why she devoted so much time to hunger relief. She paused before answering. She said, "I know what it feels like." That is all she said. She did not elaborate. She did not need to. The body she had maintained for Hollywood, the thinness the world admired, had been shaped by the same hunger she was now fighting in children who had no choice. She had lived her entire adult life in a body that famine built. And at the end, she spent what energy she had left trying to make sure no child would have to do the same. She passed away in 1993 at the age of 63. The obituaries called her a style icon, a humanitarian, one of the most beautiful women in the history of cinema. None of them mentioned paragraph 12. None of them mentioned the Dutch hunger winter. None of them mentioned that the elegance the world celebrated had required 2 hours of work every morning, and a body that had learned to survive on almost nothing. She was remembered as effortless. The effort was the part nobody wanted to talk about. If this video landed somewhere, if it felt like something you needed to hear, subscribe. The next one is ready. I'll see you there.